Welcome to the Line Change, and we're going to be recapping the Canucks versus Stars game from the other night. So let's dive right into this. Canucks unfortunately suffered a loss. The final score was 4-1 in favor of Dallas. Before we get into the breakdown, this was a very low-event hockey game. I'll admit, watching it, I was pretty bored watching this game, which is not something that I've said very often when I'm watching the Canucks games. But let's go ahead and get started. First period, not a whole lot happened in the first few minutes of the game. Dallas did go on the power play, and then they ended up not converting on their power play, so they ended up being 0-for-1 on the power play. Not long afterwards, the Canucks went on the power play. They ended up not converting on their power play either. And then EP40 ended up ringing one off the post. So, again, it's good to see EP40 actively attempting to shoot the puck. We mentioned this in our last couple recap videos, how he was starting to shoot more and regaining that confidence that he has in himself. On that first power play, Canucks only managed to get 2 shots on goal. So their power play is, I would say, struggling a little bit, and you can tell that it's really missing Quinn Hughes on that power play. Again, not a whole lot happened in this first period. Ended up being 4-on-4 in the final 2 minutes of the period, as there was a little, I don't want to say, not necessarily fisticuffs, but there was a little pushing and shoving going on, in particular with Höglander and Robertson. Höglander ended up giving Robertson a bit of a cross-check from behind into the boards, actually in front of the bench. He gave him a couple shots there, and then in came Mikko Rantanen, who gave Höglander a little cross-check from behind, and then him and Joshua got into it, and then there ended up being multiple penalties called by the referees. Only one for Dallas. Only Rantanen received the penalty for the Stars, and then it ended up being Höglander and Joshua who ended up going in the box for the Canucks. I do agree with Höglander being put into the box, but I don't understand why Joshua had to get a penalty for, I believe they called it roughing. Why? Because he went after Rantanen for going after one of his own players. I wouldn't call that roughing, so I thought that Joshua penalty was excessive and wasn't needed at all. And if you were watching the game, you saw Rick Tocchet was hot about it. He was pissed off, and I don't think I've ever seen Rick Tocchet that animated on the bench towards the referees. So I have to agree with Tocchet there. I thought that was not a good call, and I don't understand why Joshua had to go serve a penalty for sticking up for his teammate. So again, as I mentioned, very low event in this first period. No goals were scored, which is something we've been saying for the last few games. There's been very not a whole lot of scoring in the first period for the last few Canuck games. Final shots on goal in the first period were 7-6 in favor of Dallas. Moving forward to the second period, there was a great defensive play from Marcus Pettersson that I saw, and he continues to impress me more and more. And turns out he was a great acquisition for the Canucks. He plays very solid defense, and it's just great to see somebody actually playing defense for the Canucks, considering how bad prior to them acquiring Pettersson, their defense was shit. So it's great to see their defense turn around and be very good now and be very solid. Thomas Harley scored his 12th of the season at 5 minutes and 17 seconds of the second period, assisted by Dadonov and Lyubushkin. This was an unfortunate bounce for Lankinen, so you can't really fault him at all for this goal. It was very lucky. It was a tough break for the Canucks, and it looked like it hit off Marcus Pettersson and then just trickled across the line past Lankinen's pad. So I don't blame Lankinen at all for that goal. That is a lucky goal on Dallas's part, so we'll give him a free pass on that. As I mentioned earlier, still been pretty low event, even here in the second period, despite that goal from Dallas. And then the Canucks ended up tying the game up. Derek Forbort scored his first of the season at 11 minutes and 35 seconds, assisted by Mancini and Garland. So it's great to see Mancini get on the score sheet in his, what is this now, third, maybe fourth game now with the team. This was, as I mentioned, Forbort's first of the season and his first as a Vancouver Canuck. Not only is it his first of the season, first as a Canuck, but it's also his first goal in 83 games. Derek Forbort hasn't scored in 2 years. So he didn't score at all last year with the Bruins. So I got to give hats off to Forbort, getting that goal. We all talk about EP40's goal drought. Forbort had an 83 game goal drought. And granted, he's a defenseman. Defensemen like him don't usually score. They're more defensive than offensive. But this must have felt really good for Forbort, especially considering he is a UFA at the end of the season. Although I have heard that the Canucks really like Forbort and would really like to re-sign him at the end of the season. So we'll see if Canucks end up actually re-signing him. Guys, he's a big body too, so I don't pay too much attention to Forbort's play himself, but from what I've seen, he's a big guy, tough guy, and apparently the guy can shoot the pucks. I'll take that. Canucks ended up having some great offensive zone time and pace on that goal as well, like to set up that goal. It was a great setup from Connor Garland as Forbort was able to sneak around and get open. Garland found him. And then Forbort gripped it and ripped it and managed to put it past Casey DeSmith, former Vancouver Canuck goalie from last season. Everyone remembers Casey DeSmith and how great of a season he had last year. He was our Kevin Lankinen of last year. Somewhat, I wouldn't go all the way with that, as I believe Lankinen has been way much better. And then later on in the second period, I noticed Rick Tocchet juggling the lines a little. He ended up swapping EP40 with Teddy Bluger, and they essentially switched lines. So it was interesting to see. Dallas went on the power play for the third time, and then they ended up not being able to convert on the power play, so they ended up going 0 for 3. The penalty kill, still looking good. Again, as I keep mentioning in these recap videos, penalty kill is a huge positive for the Canucks. They are up there when it comes to the NHL. They're at close to the top. So again, that's great to see from the Canucks. And then Dallas scores again. It was Granlund scoring his 16th of the season at 19:34, assisted by Ceci and Duchesne. And then that is the end of the second period. So Dallas is up 2-1 going into the third. And everyone knows Canucks and their struggles with winning when they're trailing after 2 periods. They've, I believe, yet to win a game when trailing after 2. But the final shots on goal in this second period ended up being dead even at 7 apiece. Shots after 2 periods were 14-13 in favor of Dallas. So very low shot game thus far. Going into the third period, Canucks' top players, the likes of EP40, Besser, not Garland, but basically the top end players for the Canucks, Hedl, they're underwhelming thus far in this game. The Canucks ended up going on the power play in the third. They didn't end up converting, so they're now 0 for 2 on the power play. They did manage a few shots on this power play, and then later on in the third, there were some great chances for the Canucks, but they were unable to get it past DeSmith. And then Dallas scores again. This time it was Jason Robertson scoring his 28th of the season at 8 minutes and 26 seconds of the third period, assisted by Duchesne. It was a deflection, and Lankinen again had absolutely no chance to stop this. It was a on the rush goal, something that the Canucks have not been very good at preventing. And then Dakota Joshua got absolutely robbed by Casey DeSmith. And again, DeSmith was standing on his head in this game and completely stonewalling the Canucks as they had multiple chances, scrambles in front of the net, and they just couldn't get a handle on the puck and tap it in. Canucks end up taking a penalty. In my opinion, I thought it was a little soft on Tyler Myers. And then Canucks had a great chance on the penalty kill, but weren't able to, again, get it past DeSmith. And then Dallas ends up not converting on their power play. So now Dallas is 0 for 4 on the power play. And then DPD ends up ringing one off the post / crossbar. And a lot of people thought this puck went in, but it ended up not going in. It ended up, as I mentioned, going off the post and then hitting DeSmith in the back. And then that's as far as it got. I believe it was Garland actually celebrated like it was a goal, but it clearly wasn't. But tough break for DPD there. That would have been his first NHL goal. And then the Canucks had a tough break on a disallowed goal as Niels Höglander ended up hitting it in with his glove. And he attempted to knock the puck down to his stick with his glove, but instead he ended up knocking it into the net. You knew right away that this wasn't a goal at all and that they had no way of overturning this at all. It was evident. So again, a really tough break for the Canucks, as I feel as though if he had managed to get that puck onto a stick and tapped it in, that could have easily changed the momentum in this game and could have given the Canucks a bit of a boost, but it wasn't meant to be. This third period was a lot more eventful than the first two, I will admit, which is great to see, but at the same time, a little odd considering Dallas was on the second half of a back-to-back. And I felt as though in this third period, they really had some juice compared to the Canucks, and they were cycling the puck around, especially on that Robertson goal. And then Mikko Rantanen scores his 29th of the season at 18 minutes and 52 seconds into an empty net, assisted by Ceci. And then that's your game. Dallas ends up winning by a score of 4-1. As I mentioned, shots in the period ended up being 10-5 in favor of the Canucks. So this was the only period that the Canucks outshot Dallas, which shows you just how many chances that the Canucks had. The final shots on goal in the game were 23-18 in favor of the Canucks. So a very low shooting game. Some post-game notes. The Canucks' streak of 4 straight wins at home comes to an end, as they had prior to this won 4 straight at home. We already knew that Dallas was going to be a tough task for them, and they were unable to not only extend that home winning streak to 5, but also continue their 3-game win streak. The Canucks don't play again until Tuesday, which will be the first half of a back-to-back. The Canucks also had the majority of the high danger chances in this game, especially in the third period, but were unable to convert on them. So obviously the Canucks had a really good chance winning this game, but they were just unable to get the puck in the net. They were unable to generate any offense, which has been a struggle for them, at least dating back to January. So yeah, those are the post-game notes. Moving forward, we're our player of the game. This was a little tricky to decide, as Canucks only had 1 goal in the game. And as I have mentioned, it's a very low event game. So I just went ahead and picked Derek Forbort as the line changes player of the game. He ended the night with a goal, one shot on goal. So his only shot on goal, he ends up putting the puck in the net, one hit and 2 blocks. So that is the line changes player of the game for this game. And that's going to do it for this recap video. As you guys can tell, I have a new camera, a lot more light, and you don't see any glitching on the bottom. So I managed to fix that, which is great. And yeah, I got some planned videos that I'm intending on putting up hopefully today. Depends on how long it takes to edit. But I have a few topics that I want to go over and get your guys' input. But if you like this video, go ahead and click like. If you are not subscribed to The Line Change and would like to keep up to date on all your Canucks news, not trades anymore, but, injuries, you name it, anything Canucks news related, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. You also really help out the channel as well. Share this video. For those of you watching and listening on Spotify, go ahead and leave a comment, and same goes for the YouTube channel. Leave a comment. Let me know what you guys thought of the Canucks' performance in this game, and I'll see you guys in the next video.